much sums up how I feel at this point in our third lockdown. Pretty much sums it up. Hello friends, and welcome to Glitter&Garterz. It is Stripper Sunday! So yeah, we're on episode 3. Firstly, I'm really sorry that we missed last week's episode. So I did record an episode for doing the club I originally intended to talk about this week, which was Platinum Lounge in Chester, and it didn't work. It didn't work. It all went a bit wrong. Platinum Lounge links lots of the things that I've been talking about together. It's a really important pivotal point for the switch in the stripping industry when online culture really impacted the work and the clientele and, you know, the money making and the industry, the stripping industry. It also links in with the video that I'm doing for next week's True Crime Tuesday, talking about Claire's Law. It links into the sex work activism that I've been doing, talking about hate towards sex workers and the swerve agenda to close down strip clubs, and the idea that stripping is harmful to women and that women that participate in it contribute to objectification, which in turn increases violence against women, as Platinum Lounge was actually shut down by that agenda. So it was a huge chunky episode, and I sort of tried to get everything into one episode, and it ended up being a very long mess. Yeah, I wasn't happy, and you know, I'd rather not put something out that's out there forever and I'm unhappy with than push something back, take it back to the drawing board, rework it and put something out there forever that I am happy with. Especially as these videos, the Stripper Sunday ones, you know, they're effectively kind of my life story, you know, my little memoirs. So, you know, I don't really want to put something out that's shit and I'm not happy with. Anyway, you know, it's quite tricky filming and editing at the moment. Obviously, I've got my son at home, so I'm homeschooling. We've got one laptop to share for all his online stuff, and I'm working online, so I'm very, very lucky. We just have ordered an amazing new custom-built PC. Oh, that's what So I've got all new editing software coming, and I'm going to be able to do everything much better and much quicker. So I'm very excited about that. It's been a really shitty kind of week or two anyway. So firstly, before I get into this week's episode, where I've talking about something completely different, I'm talking about Metropolis in London because I needed something nice and fun to talk about. I have done a special video that I uploaded today, so it's Saturday today, and I did upload it today, and it's about sex work law and policy in the UK, and it's part of, you know, what I'm very passionate about, sex work activism, and I'm again able to tie in sort of my experiences of working with the criminal justice system and the stuff that I learned within that job. I'm working with street sex workers and in drug and alcohol to be able to share information. I've also done a video for Tuesday, for this week's True Crime Tuesday, which is about Sarah's Law, and that was both that video to do with the sex work law and policy and the Sarah's Law video. They're really important, and I'm glad that I've done them, but they were very emotionally draining. You know, they weren't fun ones to sort of do. I've tried to make them entertaining, and it is something I'm very passionate about, but they also, you know, there is a mental weight, man, when you're reading about crimes and hatred, and it, you know, there's only sort of so much, especially during COVID times where we're all sort of stuck at home, and you know, every day sort of becomes the same, doesn't it? It's all quite monotonous. So I needed to do something today that was far more fun, not quite as heavy, and I can come back to Platinum Lounge next week when I've regathered some spoons. So secondly, before I get into it today, I now have a Buy Me a Coffee account set up that's associated with my Glitter&Garterz channel. Buy Me a Coffee is very similar to sort of Patreon and that kind of setup, except you don't have to commit to a monthly membership. You can just give a tip. So mine, for me, is called Buy Me a Bevy. Of course, being from Merseyside. So if you've ever watched one of my videos and thought, I'd fucking love to buy you a little bevy and sit down and hear what she thinks about the world, hear her chat shit, that's basically what you're doing. You listen to me chat shit and you buy me a little bevy to listen to my nonsense. And it's a way of supporting the channel, because obviously it's a lot of time goes into research, filming, editing, uploading, bringing all this together. Yeah, so it's a way of supporting the channel, meaning that I can keep on doing what I do. But there is a membership option, because I'm going to be launching a Vimeo on demand soon, which has a full subscription service for learning pole dance with me, and flexibility and fitness. And, you know, it's not really fitness, to be honest. There's fitness elements, but it's sort of like slutty fitness, like get fit while acting like a bit of a slag. That's my whole USP. But yeah, you know, I was a trained dancer. I have got qualifications. I've been teaching pole for a long time. I was a stripper for a long time. So there are going to be loads of tutorials on that subscription which teach you stripper style dancing, stripper style pole dancing, floor work, lap dancing, dance like a stripper. So when you subscribe to a full subscription with Buy Me a Coffee, you also get a full subscription to my Vimeo. So if you support the channel and you don't really want to dance like a slut, then grand, just support me. But if you do think, you know what, I'd really like to learn some stripper skills and to get in touch with my sexual side, then you know what, this is a place for you. It's a place for you. So I'll put some little links to my Buy Me a Coffee with this video. And I know it's hard with COVID, only, you know, if you've got the capacity to, I'm not forcing you, but if you've got a few quid to spare and feel like lashing me some bevy money over to help support the channel, or if you want to learn some stripper skills, you can do that. Isn't that great? Isn't that fabulous? Okay, I'm going to stop trying to like plug myself now, and I'm going to get into it. So I bounced about a bit, okay, when I was younger. So I moved down to London, lived there, went to uni, dropped out, became a stripper, moved back home for a bit, moved back to London for a fella. Of course, for a fella. That was a fucking stupid idea, wasn't it? Because he was a bad twat as well, bad twat. One of them, like, 13 years older than me, you know, like, he was a grown ass, like, early 30s man when I was 19 years old. And I think I'm going to get all the large age gap relationship people here who bounce in and go, I've got a large age gap and it's the best relationship I've ever had. You know, yeah, okay. I know some large age gap relationships are fine, but generally when you've got a man in his 30s who's going after 18, 19-year-old girls, it's not the best, is it? Like, there's normally a few little red flags associated with that. And indeed there were. But that's not today's story. It's just me telling you a little bit about my life. So I bounced back to London and I wanted a new club to work in. I didn't want to go back to strings or spearmints, and I'd been sacked from LA Confidential, so I couldn't go back there. We'll talk about that another time. It was the first club I worked in. I was a bit of a little twat. So I went, and I've been told about this club called Metropolis that was meant to be amazing. So I went to an audition there to work there, and my goodness, let me tell you, there is no other club like Metropolis. There's never been another club like Metropolis. There won't be another. It was a world unto itself. If I would ever looking to set up a strip club as an owner, I would be looking to do something like what Metropolis did, because it was just crazy. Interestingly, Metropolis is now an LGBTQ club. It's been completely transformed. I know that I'm sure Katie Velour said to me she'd performed at an event there, you know, for I think maybe it was like a fetish night, something like that. I'm sure she said to me she had, and it's still incredible. I've been and looked up the pictures online. I'll be putting them along as I go. Metropolis, when you did your private dances, right? They were all done on individual poles. So when you went and gave someone a dance in like the dance room, there were loads of individual booths that each had their own pole in the middle. So you were basically like doing a pole dance while they sat there as the private dancers, the lap dance, which is dead unique. And when I looked at the pictures to see what Metropolis looks like now, they've converted these individual little pole booths where you gave your private dances into little dodgems, because they were round. Semicircle with the pole in the middle. They've converted them so they're dodgems. It looks incredible. I'm going to put loads of little pictures up. You'll be able to see, but it looks fucking unreal. Like, it's just, yeah, what they've done is amazing. So, Metropolis was 3 stories high. Okay, it was a 3-story club, and I'm going to work from the ground up because that's going to be the easiest way to do this. So, fellas paid £10 just as an entry fee. When they paid their £10 in as an entry fee, that only gave them access to the ground floor, okay? So on the ground floor, you had a big stage that you could see as soon as you walked in, like right in the middle of the room. And then there's sort of, you know, there was seats actually around the stage, interestingly, actually sitting around the stage, a bit more like the kind of tip rail idea, the American idea. I think that's the only club I've ever worked in that actually had the seats around the stage sort of layout, where they weren't, you know, tables that were just near the stage. They were actually seated at the stage, and there was a little, like, almost a little shelf, you know, a little bar that they could put the drinks down on. And then there's like tables and seats, you know, in booths around the outside. So you've got the stage in the middle, and that's got a staircase that's running up behind it that takes you to the second floor. Changing rooms is behind that staircase, and then the booths around here. DJ booth off to the left, and then behind the DJ booths, like, there's the private dance booths. So on the ground floor, you'd do your stage shows, and again, it was rotated, so you'd be called by name, and you had to do a pole show. But Metropolis was a tip on stage club. And because what it was to try and stop, because they had the seats around the stage, it was to stop people just coming in and buying a drink and sitting there nursing it all night and watching the girls on stage and not spending any money. So what they did was, you'd go on stage once and you wouldn't take any clothes off. And then you would go round with a pint glass. So you did 2 songs when you went on stage, but you didn't do them one after the other. They had a break in the middle. So you did your song, and sort of you wanted to attract attention, so you're doing all your moves and being all sexy and all of that nonsense. And then you'd go around with a pint glass, and you would be collecting tips for your next show, because you'd actually go nude on the stage. You'd go nude on the full stage, right? And that's what you were collecting the tips for, to get tipped for doing your nude stage show. So before you've even sold any dances, before you've sold a private dance, a shower dance, because we had shower dances in Metropolis, you know, a VIP, a sit down, before you've sold any of that, you can make money from tips on the stage. And if you had a decent night, you know, you could be making £80 per stage show, which is, that's your house fee. It's nothing to sneer your nose up at. The money to be made in Metropolis was there. And don't get me wrong as well, you would have nights where you'd take it around with your pint glass and people would be putting like 20p's in it, which, like, scruff. Fucking scruff. Rather you give me nothing than fucking 20p. But, you know, there would be people who'd put 10s and 5s in there. And Metropolis is one of the only clubs where I ever actually got cash thrown at me on stage, and people did throw money onto the stage. But obviously the reason we do it with a pint glass is because in America, when people are tipping the stage, they can tip with a single dollar bill, so they can throw the dollar bills. You don't really want that in the UK, because our single pounds are coins. And I don't think anyone wants shrapnel bouncing off the skin. Like, I think it wouldn't quite work the same way. So yeah, you'd then do your little stage show, and you'd have made some money there. So that was the first way. And, you know, it meant that fellas who didn't really want to have private dances could still spend money and tip the stage. You know, you tend to find they'd come in and maybe like 20 quid into pound coins. You know, they'd have like £20 coins. So they could watch like 20 stage shows and tip £1 to each girl, which, you know, if you've got 30 punters downstairs in the road doing that, that's 30 quid a stage show. It's not bad at all. So then you sold your private dancers downstairs. There was the booths behind. So, you know, people who were just on the ground floor could then still have a more intimate private dance. And I seem to remember Metropolis was one of them clubs where you could do a £10 dance or a £20 dance. Because there were a few clubs that worked like that. And basically it's because a dance is a song. So if you're only having a £10 dance and you do one song, then you're only getting like about 30 seconds, you know, where you're actually nude. Whereas if they spend £20, they get the whole second song nude. So, you know, when you're selling it to people and they'd be like, what's the difference between £10 and £20? And you'd be like, oh, the £20 one's dirtier. It's dirtier. You get to see more. You weren't actually seeing more, you were just seeing the same for longer. But, you know, so then you moved on up to the second floor. Now, if the guys wanted to go up to the second floor, they had to buy a wristband. So you had 2 different wristbands. One was first floor and one was second floor. And they were 2 different colours. And it would be interesting because some fellas would buy their wristband to the top floor as soon as they came in. So if you came in and you'd spent your tenner, It was an extra tenner to get a wristband to the second floor, and I think another tenner like to go up to the top floor. So some fellas, as soon as they worked in, like I think if you bought your wristband as soon as you worked in, it was just £20, you know, rather than paying 10 then paying 20, it was just 20. So some fellas would have bought their wristband to the top floor when they were walking in through the door. So they'd obviously been to the club before, and they knew what it was about. And it would be interesting, because if you've seen someone walking and they had that wristband on already, you'd be like, ka-ching, they know what's up there, they want to go up there. So you knew that was... So the second floor, I'll get to that. I'll get to what gone on the top floor. You never heard anything like it. Never heard anything like it in your life. So second floor... So the staircase ran up behind the stage, and then the poles actually went up all the way through the second floor. So the second floor then stopped, and there was a glass doors to the back of the room that you went through to then have to go up the side to get up to the third floor. The third floor was completely closed off, but the poles went up all the way to the ceiling of the second floor. So it was almost like a balcony floor that ran round the middle like this, with the poles coming up through and railing round it. So, you know, it was interesting because there'd be times where I'd actually climb the pole and climb all the way up into the second floor and be looking at people like, hiya, and then like slide down. Interestingly, I was talking to someone about this the other day. I think it was Chloe Hood of Hoodlum and Fang I was talking about this to the other day. Because them poles went all the way up through to the second floor, I used to do that little trick where I'd climb up and sort of go right the way up, so from the first floor you couldn't see me no more, and then, you know, the people who were stood around the railings on the second floor, I'd be there, and then I'd drop down onto my knees. So obviously you're landing on the platforms of your shoes, but, you know, it looks like you've just slid all the way down, and you make a bit of a bang with your heels. And I got pulled aside by the house mum, and she was like, don't do that anymore. I don't want you doing that. It makes me really uncomfortable, and it attracts lots of attention. You know, it makes a big bang and everyone looks. Now, isn't that interesting? Because when we talk about heel clacks, and people talk about heel clacks coming from the strip clubs, and it's because the girls would attract attention to the stage, you know, to the customers, like, look at me. In the UK, that were banned. You weren't allowed to do it in a lot of clubs. You certainly wouldn't have been allowed to do it in the likes of Stringfellows. I seem to remember in Spearmints, as long as it wasn't too obnoxious, it wasn't too big an issue. Because I remember one of the girls who danced there, you know, used to do like the big slide down the pole. Actually, I think it was her I stole it from. I think I'd seen her do it and thought it were cool. And I got banned from doing it in Metropolis. I got told no, because like it made people uncomfortable. They, you know, thought I'd like furling. So it's interesting, isn't it? Definitely the same sort of ideas don't apply to all clubs. But yeah, so this second floor went round like this, and there was lots of booze, and you could do sit downs there. You could do like your £250 an hour sit downs there. And there was a shower there. And again, each of these booths had a pole in the middle of it. So you were dancing on a pole when you were doing your lap dances, and there was a shower unit. So how it worked, because when I say to people we did shower dances, they're like, what, you stood in a shower? Okay, so how it worked was that basically you got up into this like shower unit, and it had like a glass wall at the back that had water running down it, you know, almost a bit water-furly. And then there were like sponges, kind of loofly spongy, you know, them squidgy things you have in the shower things, and you'd like have foam, and you could like lather up, so there'd be like shower gel type stuff, you know, and you could like put your hands in the water and get your loofly spongy thing wet and have some bubbles on it, and then you'd like squeeze it down your body. And then the fellas, so for a shower dance, I think it was £25 for the first person, and then £10 per person after that. And the first guy, the £25 guy, got a water gun. Got a water pistol, big ass fucking super soaker thing, right? Okay, okay. Sounds bizarre talking about it now, doesn't it? So if you had a stag do, and there was 5 of them, and the first one's paid 25, and then the other 4 have paid 4, so you've got 65 quid straight off, and then they could pay an extra 5 of the other 4 to also have water pistols. So if they paid for the water pistols, you've just made 85 quid. For one dance. So you'd go and get changed into a bikini and go upstairs, and you'd strip out your bikini and do your little shower dance, and I think it were 2 songs long, and they could use these water pistols, use these super soakers to spray the foam off you. There were rules. They weren't allowed to spray you like above the neck, So, you know, they weren't allowed to spray your face or anything like that. So, like, I remember having really long hair extensions at the time. So I'd just, like, clip up my hair and they weren't allowed to spray. And again, if they did, I don't think I ever had anyone who was a knobhead and sprayed me in the face, to be honest. But if someone did, you could just go, okay, and walk off. And you've got your fucking 85 quid. Like, fuck you, knobhead. But my goodness, if you think about it, right, I've come into work. And so it's a busy night. It's a Thursday. Metropolis worked the same way as Stringfellows. It was house fees varied according to what night it was, and your busiest nights were Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it'd be like £85, including your house mum tip out for a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. So I've come in on a Thursday, and we've got about 30 blokes downstairs. Paid me £85 a K. So I've come in and I'd done my first stage show, and everyone tipped me £1, or, you know, some were tight ass bastards and didn't tip, and someone else gave me a £5. So I've made 30 quid from my first stage show. Job's a good one. Made off my house fee. Then I go and do 3 private dances, okay? Go hustling and I do 3 private dances. And each of them, I say, oh, you know, you can have the dirty one for 20. And 2 of them go for it, 1 of them doesn't. So I've done first on my stage show. I've done 2 £20 dances. I've done a £10 dance. I've made 90 quid. I'm £5 up. Brilliant. I've only been in an hour. Then someone, they're a stag doing, and they want me and Sarah to do a shower dance. So they cough up that £85 each. Girl. So £170 between them. The 5 of them cough it up. And I go and do my shower dance. So I'm £90 up. Been in an hour and a half. It's a lot. There were so many more ways to make money than just having to sell the dancer, selling just the sit down, just it's in a slightly different room or off to the side. You're selling an experience, you're selling novelties. So this, being able to sell the novelty, right, when you're just selling yourself, right, you've got to have absolute unwavering confidence in your product, in yourself. You know, when they go, why should I take you rather than 100 other girls, you know, you're like, it can be hard. You're trying to sell this fantasy experience and make it something that's really tempting. With Metropolis, it wasn't difficult. So if you could encourage that customer to buy that wristband for the top floor and go up there, what they had set up was scenarios, fantasy scenes, okay? So they had an office set up. So when you went up there, there was a desk with a fake computer on it and a fake office chair. There was a few of them set up. And the dancers there, I think, were £30. So if a fella wants to dance and he wants something a bit different, he's a bit done with the normal lap dance experience, you know, and maybe he works in an office, maybe he's got that fantasy, you know, of having one of his young, attractive employees suddenly stripped down naked and try and seduce him in his office. Bear in mind, we're in London as well. I'm sure there's a lot of fucking businessmen that have them fantasies. There it was. There was their fantasy. So if they bought the wristbands and went up there, they could pay the extra and you could give them a lap dance on the office desk while they sit in the office chair. What an incredible thing, right? How unique and innovative. What a way to help girls make additional money. You've not just got the normal lap dances. You've got money on the poles. You've got money in the shower. You've got money in these office chairs. But the jewel in Metropolis's crown was that it had an Arabian tent set up upstairs. Okay, so when you went up to that 3rd floor, there was a whole area where it was sand. The whole floor was sand. They'd imported in, oh, this fucking sand, and it was all sand. So you'd take your shoes off. You'd take them into this little tent that had been set up, and they've set up like a little water feature. There's a little Buddha statue. There's cushions on the ground. There's little tables, so you have to sit on the floor with like your little table. And you're sitting on these little cushion chairs with your feet in the sand, all little oriental and exotic ornaments, making you feel like you're in some sort of faraway, beautiful land. So they have to buy a bottle of champagne to go to this bit, and when they get the bottle of champagne, it comes with a plate of fruit, and it comes with a shisha pipe, and you can choose whatever flavour tobacco you want for the shisha pipe. And so your VIP experience, having a sit down with these beautiful girls, is in this amazing Arabian tent, in this fantasy setup with shisha pipe, fruit, champagne, sitting on the floor in the sand. And you know what? It works for getting people to spend their money, for getting people to stay for hours upon hours, because when you're sitting there in this amazing exotic fantasy, you know, not checking the time to get up and leave after an hour. It sold the fantasy, man. It became this luxury experience. It was worth, you know, bang for the buck. There was another little area of the Arabian tent was full where they had, like, you know, when you're on holiday and they're almost like beds, but then with the canapes over them, had those as well where you could do your VIP sit downs on. You could still hear the music from downstairs and the stage curls, because obviously you might still get curled to stage when you're upstairs. So generally, if I knew I was going up and I didn't want to be disturbed because I didn't want to break the fantasy, I'd slip the DJ a tenner and ask him to keep me off the next rounds of stage, you know, rotas, because that can be quite a canny thing to do. So you still had the music going, you could still vaguely hear what was going on in the club, but it was just like being in a different little world. Absolutely, like, phenomenal. And Metropolis, you know, the owners contributed to us in a lot of ways towards us being able to earn money. You know, they would set us up to go to things like quite big events that were happening nearby, like boxing events and rugby events, so that you'd have your house fee reduced and you could go wearing, you know, nice clothes and take flyers to hand out to try and encourage people into the club. They did all sorts of extra things. So while I know I talked about this in my sex work law and policy video, but while I was working in Metropolis, we had someone who came in and filmed us for mobile phone videos. So at the time, downloads to mobile phones of strip shows and pole shows was a thing, you know, so it was just the dawn of the digital era. So a guy came in and he paid us £500, and you know, we got asked if we wanted to do it. You had to volunteer, you had to go in the daytime. And I remember getting filmed doing a shower dance and filmed doing like a strip show upstairs in the Arabian tent, you know, like a strip down. And I remember doing like a pole strip tease. So yeah, someone somewhere will have put one of them little codes from one of them little magazines into their phone to get a video, you know, if a sexy girl stripping, and poor sod will have ended up with me. I think it's interesting though, because I often hear people talking about like the difference between being bothered about your my chair's squeaking. The difference between being bothered about your partner watching porn or them subscribing to someone's OnlyFans. And they sort of were saying, well, you know, whereas OnlyFans, it can be Deborah next door, whereas with porn, you know, it's some person they're never going to meet. And I found that really interesting, because it's like, who do you think porn stars are? Who do you think porn actresses are? Do you think that they're all big porn stars? You know, like Gemma Jameson, that they're all these big A-listers that have got massive fake boobs and have got these really unreal bodies, and they live in exotic places and you're never going to meet them. Like, most of the women that do porn that you would access, you know, in most porn content, they're just normal women. They could be living next door. So your next door neighbour right now could be a porn star and you wouldn't even know. I know there'd be someone sitting there now with like an 80-year-old neighbour thinking, Jeffrey? But you know, you wouldn't have a clue. You wouldn't have a clue. Your neighbour over the road could be a massive porn star, and you wouldn't even know unless you happen to stumble across one of their porn films. You know, the majority of, I don't know, do they think that they just put porn stars don't exist as real people, that they just live in Tupperware, and that when it comes time for filming, they open the Tupperware and get them out? Like, who do you think they are? They're just fucking humans. They're just normal people. Like, oh, I don't get it, man. And then, you know, with OnlyFans, suddenly it's because they've been confronted with the fact that they're just real people, that it's like, oh no, and they have to cope with it. Like, crack on. Fucking hell. Metropolis was also an interesting club to work in because it was very diverse. There were girls from all sorts of different nationalities. You know, you had all the Eastern European girls from Russia, Poland, Lithuania, Ukraine. We had a lot of Brazilian girls who worked in Metropolis. There were Jamaican girls, there were girls from other parts of Europe, there was a girl from Hungary. And it was interesting because I think I was only so young. I was just 19 and I'm from the Wirral, which is like fucking white Wirral. So it was very interesting the way that different countries consider presenting being sexy. I remember there was one girl from Brazil, and she used to, when she went on the sunbeds, wear the same triangle bikini, so that she constantly had white bits. She constantly had white triangles where her bikini was. So she was deliberately leaving them triangles because she said that in Brazil it was seen as, you know, a real sexy thing to have like white bits, to be able to see them white bits. And I just always remember that. I thought it was dead interesting. And that was the first time that I ever saw twerking. So there were a couple of girls from Jamaica, and when they'd go onto the stage, they'd actually take their heels off. They'd kick the heels off, kick the shoes off, and they would do proper twerk and proper like dancehall type pole and sexy performance. And I had never really seen that before. It certainly wasn't common in strip clubs at that time, and you certainly did not see white girls twerking, okay? You had the Brazilian girls that would do carnival and would do like the no place like home, like the cheek shaking, I can't do it today, I'm falling over my words. So it was a real eye-opening, like, educational experience for me, suddenly being exposed to all these different ways of being sexy, these different cultures. And I'm very grateful for that. I definitely learned a lot. I feel like for me, Metropolis was my growing up club, okay, because I'd been dancing for a little while by then. So I couldn't get away with being the baby stripper anymore, you know. In your first 6 months of dancing, you can get away with being a bit clumsy and a bit green round the gills or whatever, because you're riding the baby stripper wave. And also, when you're new to a club or when you're a baby stripper, you don't half make money, because there is something about that naivety and vulnerability that you're new and lightly used that fellas seem to like, and you do for a while when you first start stripping. I feel ride on this baby stripper wave, and then after you've been dancing, I'd say it's about 12 months, you're suddenly not new anymore, and the punters can tell that you're not new and you're not naive, and that, you know, you've been doing it a little while, and you have to work on your pattern, your sail a bit more. You sort of have to establish who you are, what your character is, what your role is, what type of sexy you are, how you're presenting yourself. So I'd say that was my growing up experience at Metropolis. I suddenly had to really get with like the hard sell. And although all those wonderful tools have been given to us by the club that we were able to sell, I think it was my first experience of finding it hard. And when that happens, you can start to become a bit jealous and a bit bitter. And it starts to fuck with your head a little bit, okay? So you'll see other girls making grands, you'll see other girls going for VIPs, you'll see other girls going for loads of dances, and you just think, shit, what am I doing wrong? Like, why can't I earn anything? Why can't I get a dance? There was a couple of girls that consistently did very, very well. And I remember one night feeling that little bit like, bit jealous, bit petty, bit jealous. And these girls were friends of mine, you know. I went out for drinks with them, I went dancing with them and all that. They were friends of mine. And I remember cracking a joke to one of the girls. You know, saying like, oh, someone's a fucking lucky bitch, aren't they? Something like that. And she said, oh, it's funny because that's the third or first time you've made a comment like that to me. And straight away, you know, you're like, oh, just joking, as you do. And she fucking curled me out on it, mate. She were older, you know, she was about 10 years older than me. And she curled me out on it, and she said, yeah, but you know what the thing is, mate? Sometimes what's said in jest is meant in spite. Wow. And she was bang on the money. I was cracking a joke because I was bitter, because I was a bit jealous, because I was feeling, you know, a little bit insecure about myself. And it was hurting me seeing someone that I was friends with doing very well consistently when I was starting to find the sale a bit hard. And that has always stuck with me, that phrase, sometimes what's said in jest is meant in spite. And interestingly, I've had it myself. You know, I had a friend who would always just enjoy making me the butt of the joke, you know, in the little group of a few friends. in my own fucking studio. I always enjoy making me the butt of the joke. I always had something, you know, a bit mean, bit of a jibe to make. And I curled it out one day because particularly like I was having a bit of a hard time as well. And I curled it out one day and said, oh, it's funny, you've always seemed to have a little comment to say about me. You always seem to have, you know, a little jibe to make. And straight away, it was that. It was, oh, I'm just joking. We all joke with each other, just joking. And in my head, and you know, to the face, I'm like, okay. And in my head, just sitting there thinking of that phrase in that club, that girl curling me right out and saying, sometimes what's said in jest is meant in spite. And it's interesting when you then grow up and you're 10 years, 15 years on, and you're sort of in a situation, you realise that, you know, there's a lot that can be hidden behind these jokey jibes. But I tell you what, we're grateful for her curling me out because she was bang on the money, and it didn't half give me a kick up the arse to be like, if you're going to sit there and be petty and bitty, you need to fucking up your game and do better. And I did. You know, I sort of really thought about what I wanted to put out to the customers, you know, over who I was. So I was dancing under the name Brittany. Brittany. You know, you got to forgive me, I was only 19. And what my fantasy role was going to be, you know, who I was, who Brittany was, what am I selling. It could be quite hard as well being northern in these Mirror Market London clubs because, you know, they did hear your accent and there was a little bit of judgment, and the one to do is be, you know, like, oh, where are you from? And it's like Merseyside, and it's like, better check your car's not on bricks outside, you know, because Scousers will steal your tyres or your fucking alloys or something, I don't know. And you know, when you hear the same jokes over and over again, sort of, it becomes a little bit tired. And especially from Londoners, because no offence to any of my audience that are from London, but in my experience, the London businessman could be very fucking arrogant, like there was nowhere else in the world apart from London, and London was the best place ever, and if you were from anywhere but London, you know, you were a bit of a peasant. And you could be from Kent or Hertfordshire or somewhere, you know, surrounding, but yeah, anyone from up north, we're just all fucking purpers who are thieves. So, you know, it was having to really establish my character and role as a dancer at that point. And definitely, yeah, this little look I'm doing today, I'm going to be honest, it's not gone terribly well today, but I'm just going with it. It was part of that, I think, because we had the little Arabian room upstairs. I made that decision that I was going to sort of be fun and young and like the sort of beach babe. I think in my head I had that image of Britney Spears, I'm a Slave for You, you know, with the python and the greens and the makeup and that. So that's definitely what was going on in my head. Yeah, creating my role for Metropolis. So I'm going to go and just finish doing my last bits and put my little outfit on, and I will be back to close up for the day. So I actually used to curl this. I can remember putting on my makeup in the Metropolis changing room and curling it my snake charmer look. I can remember saying to the girl next to me, like, this is my snake charmer look. Because, you know, like, it was that, still the hangover from like American Pie, you know, Britney, Christina, that sort of late 90s, early 2000s. It's still that vibe. Everything shimmered. So I can remember having the shimmer bricks by Bobbi Brown. Oh, hold on, have to do what the beauty vloggers do. Hold on, have to put your hand behind it like this, yeah. So these were like the original highlighters, you know, before everyone was wearing highlighter. These were like the original highlighters that came out, and these were huge, and they were like so expensive, like £36 for a block. But everything was shimmer, man. All your eyeshadow was shimmer. You had these bronzing blocks and the shimmer blocks, shimmer lip gloss. Now this is still my favourite lip gloss, I've got to say. So I do go back and rebuy it when it runs out. And it is Dior 537. And it is still one of my favourite lip glosses. I really like the fact it's a little bit of colour, and it's you know, it's very sparkly and it's very nice. But again, it's got like glitter in it. It's almost got like I don't know whether you'll be able to see in the close-ups, but it's got a glitter in it, a shimmer. My goodness, just everything was about the shimmer. Her makeup was shimmer. So, you know, it was like a real big shimmer face. And I guess for going for that like beach baby look, you know, it works because it makes you glow, doesn't it? You know, when your bronzer's shimmering and glowing and your eyes are shimmering. And yeah, it wasn't, you know, like this lovely modern matte looks that people go through then with the highlighter lifting. It was just fucking make my face shine like the sun. Now, I've put this bodysuit on, although it's not an OG bodysuit, it is a new one that I've got because it's probably the thing that's most similar to my favourite outfit that I had that I wore in Metropolis. So Metropolis was long dresses before midnight. So I was recycling a lot of the dresses I'd worn for clubs previously. But there was someone that came into Metropolis that made stripper clothes. And so I got to have some pieces custom made. You know, you could look through the catalogue and choose your material and then your style. And I had this high-waisted. Now the actual bodysuit I had went even lower than this one. It went right the way down, like past my belly button, and then just had a little couple of mini straps across sort of here. But it was the first time I'd had a bodysuit. It's the first club I wore a bodysuit in. You could have your bum out after midnight, so I had this. And I remember the one I had was white with glittery stars on it. So I had this white, high-waisted, plunging bodysuit with this natural beachy hair and all this like American Girl shimmer makeup. Then with, you know, the eyeliner and the greens and golds. So, you know, it was sort of like that Slave for You, Britney vibe, like exotic twist. Oh God, I felt like the dog's bollocks. And I had really long hair extensions as well. Sometimes I had like wave plates, so they were like crimpers, but that made waves. Now, interestingly, in the late 90s and early 2000s, you were no one unless you had a Babyliss 3-in-1, okay? So it was this 3-in-1 that had a straightening plate where you could do hair straightening. It had a crimp plate where you could crimp your hair, and it had a wave plate that, especially because of the way hair extensions were, if you used this wave plate down your extensions, it literally gave, you know, that vibe of like having plaited your hair, like the perfect beach waves. And it's so interesting because I was on Instagram today, just doom scrolling, fucking quarantine doom scrolling, and I came across this advert for this appliance that's basically a wave plate, like the old Babyliss one, and it was like 2021's must-have beauty item. And it just sort of made me think, isn't it interesting how things go full circle, man? Because that was like the big thing of like fucking 2002. So for it to come back around 20 years later, like the big thing, it's like, bitch, we had them and it was a 3-in-1 and we were all doing that years ago. But yeah, I used to use this wave plate to do the proper beach waves as well, you know, like you've braided your hair. Oh God, yeah, I thought I was the dog's bollocks. Interestingly, a thought just came into my head then, because I remember sitting doing my makeup. Metropolis had 2 changing rooms. So there was a main one that was one big room, but then there was a smaller one for like girls who'd been there the longest, or like top girls, where you had your name on the mirror and you wrote your name on the mirror and that's where you sat. And I got into that second changing room. I had my name, I had Brittany on the mirror, and for the latter part of working, the club was in there. And you know what, was one of them where I was thinking to myself, how the fuck did I wrangle that? Because I didn't work there that long. How the fuck did I wrangle myself in there? Must have had the right gift of the gab. So I wrangled myself in there, but I did. So, you know, people must have quite liked me. I must have been alright. I think I have these memories of my early days in stripping, just thinking I was a bit of a knob, to be honest. You know, when you think back and cringe, like, I do think I were a bit of a knob, but aren't we all at 18, 19? I definitely think Metropolis was my growing up club, the club where I learnt lessons. It was the club where I really got exposed to different cultures, coming from a very small sort of insular peninsula, which the Wirral definitely is. It's very white, you know. I'd never been exposed to different cultures. So like working in Metropolis, like I can remember it was the first time like I had Brazilian food, because the Brazilian girls were ordering this Brazilian takeout and it was absolutely amazing. Yeah, so, and seeing twerk and just being exposed to different cultures, it was definitely a huge learning experience for me, a growing up experience. It was a club where I learned how to hustle. I sort of learned my game rather than just swinging by on the skin of my teeth because I was little and pretty. I'd lost that baby stripper naivety and glow, so I had to hustle for it. And it was also the first club, I think, where, because I made proper friends, they curled me out like you were curled out when you were being a knob. You know, it was the first club where your mate would take you aside and be like, that dress doesn't look good on you, change into something else, you're being a bit loud. Like, you know, the fellas don't really like it if they like women to be a bit more demure. And you know what, again, that opens up a whole other conversation, because I think one of the reasons why eventually I had to quit stripping was because I couldn't just keep conforming to this binary and these really toxic ideas of femininity that you have to represent as a dancer if you want to do well, particularly in the London clubs. And there's definitely elements of being a dancer beyond the just taking your clothes off that are definitely problematic. Do I think that that means that clubs should be shut down and the right to work and autonomy should be taken away from women? Absolutely fucking not. It's no different to people who play housewife, is it? It's no different to people who will dress up and put the makeup on because they want to look nice for their husband and because the husband likes it, or won't cut the hair short because the husband don't like it, or whatever else it is, go on a diet because their husband prefers them when they're a bit skinnier, you know, whatever else it is. Would you say that people shouldn't get married? No one should get married. Marriage should be made illegal because there's elements of it that are toxic. People just like to attack stripping because it offends their moral sensibilities in it, but there are definitely conversations there to be had, and they're important that we have them. But I would also say leave them to the strippers, please. Leave them to the people who've worked the job and know what they're talking about. Don't fucking keep throwing your 2p in on stripping if you've never set foot in a strip club. It's fine to listen. It's fine to relay information that's come from strippers, but don't be chirping up and throwing your weight about on the problems in an industry that you've never even set foot in. And that's my ending for the day. So yeah, thanks very much for joining me today. A little bit of a shorter one, a little bit more light-hearted. That's good. I think I needed it. Yeah, I don't really know how I feel about the greens. I don't think it's something I'd really choose myself now. It's not bad. A little bit dated. Oh, the shiny is a bit much, isn't it? You know. Yeah, it's not really what I'd choose myself now, but it was a look. And I loved it at the time. Absolutely loved it. I had them Rimmel eye pencils that you got in all different colours, and I had one that was the same colour green as well, and I used to do my waterline in green and everything, but I wasn't going that far today. But yeah, I'm not so sure I'd go for the greens in day-to-day life now, maybe for a photo shoot or something, but I don't think it looks bad. A little bit shiny on the eyes, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I don't love it as much as the last two looks, but I don't hate it either. So thank you for joining me today. Please join me again next week for episode 4, where we are talking about Platinum Lounge in Chester. You can also join me for True Crime Tuesday, where we're talking about Sarah's Lure this week. And check out any of my other videos that I'm starting to assemble a little collection of them now. Isn't that nice? You got fuck all else to do. You're stuck in the house. Watch some videos. Drop me a like. Throw a comment on there. And if you so feel inclined, you can support me via Buy Me a Coffee /Misty Pole Dancer. So stay safe, my friends. Stay at home. Wash your hands. Be kind to yourself. And I will see you again soon. Bye.